Today we're going to talk about Mexico, and we're going to look at the culture and kind of the things that make it really great. It's a lot of fun. This is a fun country to talk about because um, most of you guys are pretty familiar with it since it's so close. Um, all right, let's get started. Okay, so the people. So the ancestors of Native Americans were the first people to populate Mexico. So these are known as the indigenous population. Okay, so the blue ones are the ones you're going to highlight on this one. So the indigenous population, these are the people from an area's first inhabitants. Okay, and so they migrated from Asia about 40 to 60,000 years ago, and most remained isolated, but two major civilizations are going to emerge in Mexico that are going to be important. So you have the Mayans, who lived on the Yucatan Peninsula. Okay, so this right here is Yucatan. Okay, that's where the Mayans lived. And then you have the Aztecs, okay, who lived in central and southern Mexico. And the arrival of Europeans is going to create a new ethnic group known as mestizos, and the mestizos make up the largest part of the population today. Okay, so density and distribution. So the world's most populous Spanish-speaking country is Mexico. Mexico City has about 19 million people, and they've seen a lot of rural to urban migration, so urbanization. About 75% of the population now lives in cities. They have limited land in these cities, limited land, lack of social services, lack of jobs, and so it costs people a lot of money to get into the cities. And then once they get there, they're not finding work, and so it costs. Many of them have to stay there because they can't afford to move back, and there's not really much to move back to in some cases. But like I said, this has led to urbanization. So this is people moving from rural areas into cities. Now, Mexico City is considered a primate city. So, this is an urban area that dominates its country's economy, culture, and political affairs. Okay, so not only is it the largest city, it's also the capital city. Okay, so Native American empires. So, the Mayans, who we looked at, lived on the Yucatan Peninsula in southern Mexico. Um, they were ruled by priests and nobles. Okay, so they were a theocracy. Their economy was mostly agricultural, and they traded some with neighboring communities, but they developed accurate calendars through astronomical observations. And it was this that really brought them to the forefront in 2012. The Many people believed that the Mayan calendar stopped, and so that signaled the end of the world. Well, the Mayans at the time were going through a major drought, and people were interviewing the descendants of these Mayans, and they said, "No, the world's not going to end, but we want it to rain." So, kind of funny. But eventually, the Mayans will abandon their cities. About 40 cities have been recovered on Yucatan, and you can go visit those. If you go to like a resort, like in Cancun or something like that, they'll often have trips to visit the Mayan ruins. And most of the glyphs do remain untranslated. So glyphs being like picture symbols, but the ancestors today live in southern Mexico and Central America. The Aztecs, they live in central to southern Mexico. Their capital was Tenochtitlan, which is present day Mexico City. But they grew crops on chinampas. There's a big lake in the middle of Mexico there, and that's where the Aztecs lived. And what they would do is they would make islands, basically floating islands, made from large rafts that they would cover with mud from lake bottom. They would put that mud on these rafts, and then they would plant crops on it, and then they would use the water from the lake to fuel the crop growing. And so that's how they got their crops, which I think is pretty ingenious. But they had a highly structured class system. They were very militaristic, so the emperor and military officials were on top. Then below them were the priests, and they performed the rituals to win the favor of the gods. This often included human sacrifices. And then on the bottom you have your commoners, your farmers, laborers, soldiers. Okay. So the Aztecs were still expanding when the Spanish arrived in 1519, and this is when the conquistador Hernan Cortez defeated them. He's going to defeat them in 1521. And then for the next 300 years, Mexico was a viceroyalty of New Spain. So that means that they were ruled by viceroys. A viceroy is basically a governor. Okay, so it was a royally appointed official who ruled on behalf of the king or queen of Spain. In the late 1700s, however, resentment against the Spanish is going to spread throughout Mexico, and then Mexico will actually be the first Latin American country to win their independence from Spain. And they did this because they were led by Miguel Hidalgo. He's going to lead the independence movement in 1810, and then they will officially become independent in 1821. So after independence, a small group of wealthy landowners, army officers, and clergy is going to rule. And so this was kind of a period where they were still trying to decide like what kind of government they wanted and that. So there was a lot of different power struggles between different very powerful people. And so there's going to be a lot of revolts, and so this is going to lead to chaos. When that happens, ultimately, in history, what ends up happening is a dictator will emerge. And this is exactly what happened. So the Caudillo or the dictator is going to emerge, and then the military and the landowners are going to back them because the Caudillo is very sympathetic to rich people. And so if you're rich, you're going to support whoever's making you rich. And so that's kind of how that worked. But in 1917, they're going to adopt a new constitution and they're going to establish a federal republic. So they like us, they have three branches of government, and they have states in Mexico. And the president is elected in 6-year terms. So in 1929, the Institutional Revolutionary Party, or the PRI, dominated politics, and they did for a very long time. And their control pretty much ended in 2000 when Vicente Fox of PAN, he won the election. 2016, Felipe Calderon became the president-elect, and then in 2018, they've recently had an election where Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, he is now the president, and this is him here. So he's the current president of Mexico. He ran on the promise that he was going to end the drug cartels, which he has not done that at all. But struggles for reforms for Native Americans, for farmers, and for workers do still continue to this day. So they're still trying to reform the government, so it's more for the people and not as much for the rich folks. Okay. Moving on to culture. So the official language is Spanish, so 95% of the population speaks Spanish, but there's more than 50 indigenous languages that are spoken in Mexico. 90% of Mexicans are Roman Catholic, and both of these things, the language and religion, come from the Spanish. Okay, so when the Spanish conquered, it was like the Spanish were very, very Catholic. They were militant Catholic at this time. So this is when the time of like Philip, where he was literally using his navy to try to convert the English to become Catholic. So they're very, very devout Catholic, and so this is why Spanish, obviously, and Catholicism are practiced in Mexico. So there are indigenous religions practiced, and then the Mayan and the Catholic beliefs have kind of become blended, and so this is known as syncretism. So you'll see things that are more, I guess, Latin American Catholic as opposed to like European Catholic. So like you'll see brighter colors and different practices that are done, and that's that syncretism that was going on. Okay. Education, healthcare. So most public schools are in the rural areas. They don't have very much money, and they don't have very qualified teachers as schools in the cities. But in the cities, you see more private schools there. And the government has been trying to make gains in education, but it's slow going, just like anything in any government. As far as healthcare, so health problems in Mexico are linked to poverty, lack of sanitation, and malnutrition. Obviously, are a big issue. And then the government does subsidize their healthcare, so healthcare is available to all, but it's really very poor quality, um, especially in the rural areas. So there's very poor quality of public medicine, and so many people will go into the cities where there are better hospitals, or a lot of people come into the United States for better health care. Family life. So Mexicans highly value the family, especially the extended family. So this is everybody in your family. So great grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, parents, children, everybody. They often share their home with extended family, and compadres or godparents are very important to the family as well. And these are people who are chosen to sponsor and watch over babies. The idea of machismo is definitely prevalent in Mexico. So, this is a Spanish and Portuguese tradition of male supremacy. Now, women have made advances, but it's still like more male dominated. Sports and leisure. So, their national sport is bullfighting. They are very passionate about soccer or football. Baseball and highlight. It's highlight is a game. It's really similar to handball, but they have like a glove that like there's like a hook on the end, and they like throw a ball against a wall like in handball, and it's coming at like crazy speeds. But those sports are obviously very popular as well. Um, excuse me. Their favorite leisure activity is celebrating, though. So any excuse for a fiesta. So friendly gatherings, family dinners, religious holidays, patriotic events. Any reason to have a fiesta is definitely celebrated. Okay, so I'm going to show you some pictures. So I've been to Mexico once, and I'm going to show you some pictures of kind of my experience there. So we went to Los Cabos. Los Cabos sits on the end of the Baja California Peninsula. Okay, and we stayed in a place not in San Jose del Cabo. Okay, so it's right here. We did not stay in the more touristy Cabo San Lucas. So this was our resort that we got to stay in. It was really nice. Uh, so when we were there, we went on a city tour, and one of the things we saw was the Spanish Mission. So this right here is a picture of the Spanish Mission, and I'm gonna show you some pictures of the inside here. Oh, this is the courtyard in front of it, and while we were there was a bunch of kids. It's not in this picture, but there were kids getting ready to set up, and they were gonna perform. They're like from school, and they were gonna perform music in the gazebo there. So this is the inside of the Spanish Mission, and they didn't allow us to take pictures of the coolest part of it. So in this little alcove over here to the left, there's a picture or there's a statue of Mary, and she's just got ribbons just covering her, and they're prayer ribbons. And so people, instead of like lighting candles and that, people would they would write names on the ribbon, and then they would drape that over Mary, and then they were praying for specific people. Um, okay, so this is just a plaza that we went to. So the shops are here. Um, these are the kind of the nicer shops. So we went into some other places too that had they're more outdoor shops, and those people they like haggled with you. My husband bought a hat, and the guy said $20. My husband said 15, and the guy was like, "Sweet, sold." You know, he's not a very good haggler, but he probably should have said like 5 or gone down, farther than that, and maybe met in the middle at 10 or something. But um, anyway, so that's kind of how they price things there. So this is a restaurant, La Pineta. Or I'm sorry, this is a boutique, not a restaurant. I'm sorry. This is a boutique, and I'm gonna show you kind of the cool things that they have here. So they made what's called huichol art, and you could see that each. So what they would do is they would make a statue, and then they would cover it in honey, and then they would put beads in it, and then the honey would hold the beads in. And so this is what that looks like. It would take years to make something like this. And I'll show you here. So this is a woman making a skull for Dia de los Muertos. And you can see that she's putting beads specifically in certain spots. And the beads, so you can see they're very, very small. So there's different sizes of beads. The bigger 11, 14. Okay. And then so this is in Cabo San Lucas. This is the arch in Cabo San Lucas. I didn't actually take this picture. I didn't have a very good one of it, so I had to include one from the internet. And some of these other pictures were from the internet. But on this side over here, that's where the Pacific Ocean is, and then on this side, this is the Sea of Cortez. So this is where the two meet, and so they converge here, and it's very, very blue water on this side and like greener water from the Sea of Cortez. And you can see it's like a line where they come together. It's really neat. So this right here shows that again. So this is an aerial view. I did not take this picture either. This is really cool. So they had these seals that they just like hung out on the rocks all the time. And what they would do is they have tourist boats, like the glass bottom boats. We went on one of those tours, and then what they would do is they would get the seals to come up on the boats and do like tricks and stuff, and they would give them fish. These are wild seals, and they've just kind of been trained to hop up on these boats and give tourists some cool pictures. All right, so that's it. That's all I got for you. I hope you all have a good day. Don't forget to do your processor. So it's 10 test questions. Make sure you highlight your answers. Okay, make it easy for me to see. All right, have a good day.